Hello, friends. I'm going to talk about something today that is music, but is not an album. It's not a record or a CD or a file. It is a thing. Um, if you've traveled to other countries or explored the cultures of the large town you live in, there are Buddhist temples where people do chants. They do these Buddhist chants. And sometimes there are these little machines, little transistor radio looking devices that have a chip in them that has stored chants, Buddhist chants. You'll see these around. I've seen them and heard them. They're interesting. It's like called a Buddha box sometimes. And you can switch between like 9 different chants or more. Like some of them have a lot. But there's a duo of musicians, Chinese duo. They're based in China, electronic music duo. Two guys named Christian Verant. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly, and Zhang Jian. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. But their group, their duo, is called FM3. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that properly. They have released, albums of electronic music, but one thing they did, which I always thought was really interesting, is they took the idea of the Buddha box that I was talking about, this thing that would sort of help you meditate. It's like a meditation tool. There are versions of it that you can get as apps for your phone, of course, but originally they were like these little plastic, sort of cheaply made things. And so these two guys, FM3, decided, let's make a Buddha box, but let's make it with our music on it in this kind of ambient loops of music, which is a really interesting idea. If you have this little box and you start a loop on it and you maybe have another one and you put it over on the other side of the room and you start the loop and they're not in sequence, they're out of sync with each other, or they're playing slightly different loops at, different speeds. Like one is going through a loop a little bit faster than the other one. You end up creating what is called generative music. Now, some people, I believe, think that, or believe correctly, perhaps, that Brian Eno invented this idea of starting multiple loops of music offset with each other in such a way that music is generated by the process. He's not actively playing this music in a way that he's deciding what notes to play. He's letting the notes that he already recorded play back out of sync with each other so that unexpected musical associations occur, which is a really fascinating idea to me. It's always been a fascinating idea, the idea that you could set something in motion and then sit back and let it create music. It's almost like the idea of wind chimes, where the wind kind of decides what note is played. But if you go to somebody's garden and they have a ton of wind chimes, sometimes you can sit there and you can hear, and it's in stereo too. You can hear different melodies being these more ambient melodies. You're not hearing full-on pop songs, of course, but you're hearing generative melodies, which is interesting to me. And the Buddha box idea is interesting. They created a device that's very similar to the Buddha box, and they called it a Buddha machine. And here's one of them. It's a very simple, very cheaply made device. It is a electronic box that with a speaker right there. It's got a switch on the top. You put a couple of batteries in the back of it, and when you turn it on, you get and what you're hearing right now is just through my microphone, so it's probably sounds lo-fi, but in fact it actually really is quite lo-fi. Then you can switch to different loops. a little speaker distortion in there. But that is something that you can sort of change the tonality of it by putting it in a different space. You know, putting it over in a room, putting it in a room somewhere, like a bathroom or a room that's tiled or something. You get all this reverb. You can kind of experiment with it. It's kind of interesting to play with. And then they came out with the Buddha Machine 2, which here's one of those, and it's got different sounds on it. If I can remember how to turn it on. It's, here we go. This has a different set of tones. So if you put this one on in conjunction with that one, and you can switch it around. But it's that kind of lo-fi ambience that is almost like the kind of ambient music that Brian Eno said is music to ignore when he was recording some of his early ambient music. And then there was they did a few more editions. Here's a one number Buddha Machine 4. It's very cheesy, very cheaply made, very thin plastic. You know, it's that kind of construction of a lot of really cheap electronics that you would find. But there's 3 of them going. I don't know if you can hear it. And if you put those in different places in your house, you can create a pretty interesting little ambient universe where you can sort of walk through different places and the music changes. It's kind of generative. It's generative music. That's, I guess, the term for it. And the more the more of these you have, the more vast your ambient, lo-fi ambient soundscape is. But I just wanted to show these things and talk about the idea of generative music. There's a few other ones. They released the Buddha Machine 5, and they had kind of this rubberized surface on them, which unfortunately is the kind of rubberized surface that gets sticky after a few years. So like this one is so sticky that it kind of like, I don't know, it's like, I wish there was a way to spray something on there so that they're not sticky, because I don't like picking those up. Now my fingers are sticky. But there was a bunch of other versions. This one's kind of slightly transparent. This one is the kind of day glow colors scheme that they had. The original ones were a little bit more, plain. But anyway, that's me talking about something other than records. The Buddha Machine by FM3. I think it's a fascinating idea. It's really fun to play with them and to kind of just put them around in places. Like if you have an unusual cocktail party, you can put batteries in them and put them out in your garden, and people can walk through and they're like, you're weird. But stuff like that is fascinating to me. I like the idea of it's like early, like proto AI, I guess, where you have a machine that is basically creating music for you, if that makes sense, even though it's already recorded loops, pre-recorded loops. The combinations of them create these soundscapes. Kind of fun. I don't know if that's interesting or not, but check them out. You can. The cool thing about them is they're super cheap. I think they're like $20, and you can still get them. They're not like high-end electronics. The speaker in there is the cheapest speaker possible. They break pretty easily, and but it's a fun idea, and it's an interesting concept, and they kind of look cool on a shelf. They're the type of thing that if people come to your house, they're like, what is that? So check it out. See if it's something that you think is kind of fun, and it's a weird little device. Musical? Is it musical? Who knows? But thanks for watching, and I will talk to you again real soon.